to pick up some supplies for the apartment. We were there for maybe 10 minutes tops, just going in and out. After we loaded everything into the car, we started to head back home. Not even 5 minutes into the drive, Stacy said she thinks someone's following us. I sort of laughed at this and asked what did she mean. She was turned around in the passenger seat and looking out the back window. She said she swore the man driving behind us was someone who was also just in Walmart with us. I looked in my rearview mirror. The guy driving behind us looked to be in his 40s, had a Baltimore Ravens hat on, and was gripping the steering wheel for dear life. Now, I'll admit, I don't recall seeing this man in Walmart, but Stacy swore on her life that he was, and he was now following us. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I started making random turns. I would turn left at a stoplight, and then right at stop signs. But the guy behind us was following my every direction. I was driving down a main road, and suddenly put on my flashers. I pulled over to the shoulder of the road, and waited to see what the car behind me was going to do. Well, he did the same thing. He literally pulled over to the shoulder, put his flashers on, and parked right behind us. That confirmed it to me that he was indeed following us. I looked in the rear view at him, and this guy just had this death stare at Stacy and me. I did not want this creep knowing where my apartment was, so I had an idea. My dad works at the firehouse in town, and he was on shift that day. So I put my car into drive and drove over there. And yes, the entire drive over, the man was still following us. I pulled into the parking lot of the fire station and we ran inside. As we did, we noticed the car pull into the parking lot with us. They stopped and then slowly pulled out and drove away. I found my dad and told him everything. We unfortunately didn't get his plates or anything, so there wasn't much we could do other than be grateful that nothing serious came out of this, other than a pretty creepy experience. Be safe, everyone. This story happened back in 2019. I work in retail, and I don't get out sometimes till 10 p.m. or later. Well, I was driving home from work one night. I was on the expressway, cruising home and just wanting to get into bed and go to sleep. I'm about halfway home when this car that was driving pretty close to my bumper starts flashing their high beams at me. At first I thought it was one of those really bright headlights that some people have, but no, this car was actually flashing theirs at me. I started to look around my car to make sure everything was shut and good, because sometimes people flash you to let you know something's wrong. But nothing was wrong in my car. My headlights were on, and none of my lights on my dashboard were on. Since I didn't think anything was wrong with my car, I just decided to keep on driving, despite the annoying flashes. But that's when the car behind me started honking and getting even closer to me. They're now honking and flashing at me. And we were on the expressway, mind you. We were already doing speeds of over 60, so now I'm getting really nervous as to what this car's problem was. I started to really study the car. It was some kind of souped up truck with that extra guard piece in the front. But since their high beams were blaring at me, I couldn't get a good look at who was driving. As I'm looking in the rear view, that's when I see a hand come out of the driver's side window. It was pointing to the shoulder of the road. The whole time they were still continuing to honk and flash their high beams. I honestly thought at this point something must be really wrong with my car, so I put on my blinkers and pull over to the shoulder of the expressway. The truck behind me does the same thing. I keep my car running and get out. The truck parked a few paces behind me, and I start walking over, almost to the point of yelling, "What's their deal?" I was about to be at the driver's side window when I see that both the driver and the passenger doors open up. Out step two pretty strong men who were both wearing some sort of shitty scarecrow masks. They saw the look of horror I had on my face and started running at me. Thank God I kept my car running, because I full-on sprinted back to my car and just peeled off. I did see them try to get back into their truck and follow me, but I had such a head start and was driving so fast that I was able to lose them. I made it home safely that night and had a really hard time of processing what had happened and even getting sleep. It was the scariest moment of my life. So last summer, it was me, my friend Heather, and Molly. We live in Philadelphia, and we were making a day trip down to the Jersey Shore. It's not a long drive. You pretty much hop onto the Atlantic City Expressway and can be at the beach in under 2 hours. Well, anyway, in this story, we were driving back home from the beach. We were exhausted and dehydrated, as it was a pretty hot day out in the sun. And for reference, I was the one driving us all. So we get back into Philadelphia after about 2 hours of driving, and it's pretty late at this point, like nearly midnight. Heather and Molly both had to use the bathroom, and I did need gas. So before I get home, I stopped at this gas station. Heather and Molly get out and go inside the place to use the bathroom, while I take out my credit card to fill up my car. As I'm pumping my gas, that's when this beat-up Honda Civic pulls up to the pump right behind me. And this guy who looked to be in his 30s gets out. He had on really baggy sweatpants and a hoodie that was 5 times too big for him. He was also smoking a cigarette, which I thought was pretty stupid as he was standing by a gas pump. I try not to make eye contact as I was already getting bad vibes from him, but he seemed to notice me and started to whistle at me. He puffed a cigarette and asked what a baddie like me is doing out this late. I was actually terrified because both my friends were still in the gas station bathroom. I nervously laughed and said just getting gas. The guy tossed a cigarette and started walking closer. I noticed that he wasn't even filling up his own tank. Just as he was walking closer, I saw Heather and Molly walking back. I gave them a look with my eyes that we could be in danger and to hurry the hell up. The guy sees my friends get into the car, and at this point he's standing right next to me, and I am literally shaking. He pulls out another cigarette from behind his ear and says, "You guys want to come back to my place and do some blow? I do love the snow bunnies." He even licked his lips at me. I put the nozzle back, didn't answer him, and got back into my car. I shut the door and locked it. The guy was now bending over at my window and said, "Hey, you stupid bitch, I asked you a question." Heather and Molly were both yelling at me to drive, and I did. I pulled out of the gas station, and then saw in horror that the guy ran to his car and started following us. Now, this is Philadelphia, and the streets here are tiny and there's always traffic. I try my best to swerve in and out of lanes, but the guy was still on me. There was a point when he put his window down and was brandishing a gun. That's when I knew we had to lose this guy or it would only end bad. Molly put into Google Maps the nearest police station and said to drive there. It was only 3 minutes from where we were. I ran so many red lights and broke a lot of road rules to get there. I whip into the police station and we see the Honda Civic slow down but then drive past. We all went into the station and told our story and made a complaint and filed reports. Nothing ever came of it. We gave the best description of the make and model of the car, but we didn't have the plates. But in the end, my friends and I were okay, which is all that really mattered. Use my story as a warning to stay alert out there and to always use good judgment. Thanks for listening.